In the vast expanse of the galaxy, humanity was just another speck, overlooked by the more advanced alien civilizations that populated the stars. The Intergalactic Federation, a coalition of powerful races, had long dismissed humans as primitive. Their technology, though impressive by Earth standards, paled in comparison to the high-tech weaponry and defenses of the Federation's alien members. To the aliens, humanity was little more than a curiosity, a species not yet ready to take a significant role in the interstellar community. The Federation had no reason to believe that humans could stand against them, especially in matters of combat. That all changed when Captain Alara Klein, a young human pilot with a sharp tactical mind, was thrust into a battle that would forever alter the course of galactic history. Alara had always known that humanity's strength was not in advanced technology or massive fleets. It was in their ability to think outside the box, to adapt in ways no alien mind could match. Her reputation was still young, but she had already gained a reputation among those who had witnessed her tactics, even if most of them were not entirely sure how to explain her brilliance. During what was supposed to be a routine scouting mission, Alara's squadron encountered a fleet of the Zorth, a ruthless alien race known for their superior technology and overwhelming numbers. The Zorth had been eyeing human space for some time, and now they had decided to strike. Alara's squadron was outnumbered, their ships inferior in both firepower and speed. The aliens launched their attack with devastating precision, their weapons cutting through the human vessels like a hot knife through butter. One by one, Alara's comrades fell. The Zorth were relentless, their ships surrounding the humans in a deadly trap. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming assault, Alara remained calm. Her fighter was a marvel of human engineering, small, agile, and equipped with just enough advanced tech to keep up with the enemy. As the Zorth closed in, she refused to let the terror of the situation dictate her moves. Instead, she focused entirely on the moment, her mind racing with every possible escape route, every way to outsmart her enemies. Her ship zipped through the chaos, weaving between enemy fire with precision and speed that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Every alien ship she passed was left confused, unable to predict her next move. Where others would have given up, she saw opportunity. It wasn't that she had better weapons or stronger shields, it was that she thought differently. In the middle of the fight, she spotted a small gap in the alien fleet, a weakness in their formation that no one else had noticed. With a sudden shift in trajectory, Alara darted through the gap, narrowly avoiding a barrage of fire aimed directly at her. The Zorth, stunned by her unpredictability, faltered for a moment. That moment was all she needed to make her escape, Alara's fighter streaked away from the wreckage of her squadron. The alien pursuit faltered. The Zorth, in all their advanced technology, couldn't keep up. They tried, of course. They sent their best pilots after her, determined to eliminate the lone human who had somehow escaped their grasp. But no matter how hard they tried, Alara's tactics always put her one step ahead. Her mind worked faster than theirs. She understood the patterns of combat in a way they couldn't fathom. And as she returned to Federation space, the message she sent was clear. Humans had more to offer than anyone had ever realized. The Federation, of course, couldn't ignore what had happened. News of Alara's victory spread quickly, but it was met with mixed reactions. Some saw her escape as nothing, more than a lucky fluke. After all, how could a single human pilot defeat an entire fleet of one of the galaxy's most dangerous races? But Alara knew better. She knew that her victory was not a stroke of luck, but the result of something far more significant. Humanity's unique ability to adapt, to improvise, and to outthink those who relied solely on their technology. The Zorth might have the most advanced ships, but they lacked the creativity that humans had in abundance. Alara was determined to show the galaxy that humanity's true strength lay not in their weaponry, but in their minds. And she was prepared to prove it, one mission at a time. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long, and Alara Klein was ready to prove them all wrong. The stage was set for a new kind of warfare, one where the human mind would rise to the forefront, rewriting the rules of space combat forever. After her stunning escape from the Zorth fleet, Captain Alara Klein became a symbol of hope and the embodiment of humanity's unexpected potential. The Federation's leadership was intrigued, but also uncertain. How could one human pilot, armed with nothing but her wits and a nimble fighter, defy the might of a technologically superior alien fleet? To explore her potential further, the Federation offered Alara a unique opportunity. She was assigned to a secret project, one that could change the course of the war. The goal was to create a new human fighter that would integrate her unorthodox tactics with the best of advanced alien technology. Alara was tasked with being more than just a pilot. She had to be the architect of a revolution in space combat. The Federation's top scientists and engineers began working day and night, eager to bring this vision to life. They focused on enhancing the ship's firepower, shields, and stealth capabilities, believing that these were the critical elements for success in combat. But Alara, true to her instincts, knew that it wasn't just brute force that would give humanity an edge. It was the ability to outsmart, to surprise, and to be unpredictable. While the Federation scientists pored over blueprints, calculating weapon power and armor strength, Alara focused on something far more elusive: agility. She knew that no matter how advanced the Zorth technology became, their predictable patterns would remain their downfall. Alara's mind raced with ideas. The ship couldn't be like anything the Zorth had encountered before. It needed to be dynamic, a ship that could think on its own, almost like an extension of its pilot. The more she trained in the virtual simulators, the more her unique thinking became apparent. Her flying was erratic yet precise, darting and weaving in ways that baffled the simulations. Instead of relying on heavy weaponry or impenetrable shields, Alara designed the ship to move like lightning, exploiting the gaps in enemy formations that no one else could see. The more she refined her concepts, the more she realized that her approach was unlike anything the Federation had ever imagined. But the higher-ups were hesitant. The idea of a ship that was less about raw power and more about unpredictability and finesse was hard for many to grasp. Some of the Federation's top brass, still clinging to their traditional views of war, didn't believe that a single human mind could truly change the rules of space combat. They saw Alara's designs as too risky, too unconventional. Yet, there were others, those who had witnessed her escape from the Zorth, those who understood the value of human ingenuity, who believed in her. They trusted her vision. The project moved forward, albeit at a slower pace than Alara would have liked. Meanwhile, the war with the Zorth was escalating. The alien race had been emboldened by their previous victories, and now they were pushing deeper into Federation space. The Federation, still underestimating the potential of humanity, prepared for a large-scale battle, confident that their superior technology and overwhelming numbers would be enough to crush the Zorth once and for all. But what the Federation failed to see was that the Zorth, in all their power, had one fatal flaw: their predictable, methodical approach to combat. They never anticipated that a small human force, led by a pilot like Alara, could turn their tactics upside down. As the Federation continued to gear up for the decisive battle, Alara's fighter, still in its early stages of development, was nowhere near ready for the front lines. But Alara knew that this ship, once complete, could shift the balance of power. The Federation was gearing up to use sheer numbers and firepower, but they failed to realize that Alara's innovation could be the game-changer. Her fighter would be the one element the Zorth couldn't counter. It would be a weapon of mind over matter, a tool designed to exploit the Zorth's biggest weakness, predictability. Time was running out, and the battle with the Zorth was imminent. Alara knew that she had to act quickly, even if it meant taking risks. The Federation was ready to fight a traditional war, But Alara was preparing for something else entirely. Something that could forever alter the way the galaxy viewed humanity. And soon it would be her turn to prove that the true power of a human mind was something no alien force could ever replicate. The tide of war, Alara knew, was about to change. The first combat test of Alara's new fighter was supposed to be a moment of triumph, the culmination of all her hard work and unconventional thinking. The Federation had put their trust in her design, and Alara was eager to see if her vision would live up to the hype. However, things quickly went awry. The fighter, still in its early experimental stages, malfunctioned almost immediately. The advanced systems she had spent countless hours refining failed in spectacular fashion. The ship's engines sputtered, and the once predictable maneuvering became a chaotic mess. The controls slipped from her grasp as the fighter spiraled, out of control. Before she knew it, alarms were blaring, warning her of catastrophic system failures. The ship was overheating, the hull cracking under the pressure of the malfunction. Alara tried to stabilize the craft, but the damage was too severe. With a final, desperate command, she initiated the emergency ejection sequence, launching herself into the cold void of space just seconds before the ship exploded in a brilliant flash. The debris scattered across the cosmos, a vivid reminder of her failure. Back at Federation headquarters, the mood was grim. Alara's failure wasn't just a technical mishap. It was a crushing blow to the belief that humanity could compete with the galaxy's most advanced forces. The Federation leadership, furious over the wasted resources and the damaged reputation, questioned whether Alara's vision had been too ambitious. Some even whispered that it was time to abandon the project altogether. As for Alara, her career was teetering on the edge of collapse. Her dream of reshaping space combat, of proving humanity's worth, seemed lost before it could even begin. But instead of succumbing to despair, Alara did what she did best. She analyzed every failure. She didn't see this as the end, but as a learning opportunity. She spent hours poring over every detail, every malfunction. The ship's design had been sound. It was the execution that faltered. The systems had not integrated as smoothly as expected, and the alien technology, while potent, hadn't meshed perfectly with human engineering. It wasn't an unsolvable problem. It was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. Alara refused to give up. She wasn't about to let a single failure define her or her mission. With fierce determination, she rolled up her sleeves and began modifying the fighter herself. She took a hands-on approach, combining alien technology and her own ingenuity. Every tweak, every adjustment was made with a deep understanding of how space combat worked. She redesigned the ship's core systems, recalibrated the engines, and reinforced the structure. She made the craft more agile, more unpredictable, and, most importantly, more attuned to her instinctive style of combat. Days turned into weeks as Alara worked tirelessly. She couldn't afford any more mistakes. The stakes were too high, and she knew that if she failed again, there would be no coming back. Finally, when the ship was ready, Alara took it back into space. This time, she wasn't just testing the ship's systems. She was testing her theory of combat. She would use her newfound understanding of the fighter to turn the tables on her enemies. As she engaged in combat simulations, Alara pushed the ship to its limits, exploiting every ounce of its agility and unpredictability. Her movements were fluid, almost like a dance. She would feint to one side, drawing enemy fire, only to dodge at the last moment and strike from an entirely different angle. The ship's design allowed her to maneuver in ways that no one, not even the most advanced alien forces, could anticipate. Each move was an extension of her mind, and the ship seemed to respond as though it shared her every thought. Alara's tactics were revolutionary. The Federation had spent years perfecting the art of space warfare, focusing on strength and firepower. But Alara's approach was something entirely new. She relied on speed, precision, and misdirection to outsmart her opponents. And it worked. Word of Alara's success spread quickly throughout the Federation. Her fighter, now dubbed the Human Anomaly, became the symbol of humanity's potential to outmaneuver the galaxy's greatest forces. The once dismissed human species now had a fighter capable of rewriting the very laws of space combat. Alara's success was not just about the ship, it was about the mind behind it, the creative and adaptable nature of human thinking. Her victory proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology, but its ability to think in ways that the more rigid, predictable alien minds simply couldn't. Alara Klein had not only saved her career, she had changed the future of galactic warfare. The Federation no longer saw humanity as a primitive species. They saw Alara as proof that human ingenuity could and would reshape the galaxy. The day the Zorth finally launched their full-scale assault on the Federation's outer colonies, the galaxy held its breath. The Xorth, with their overwhelming firepower, advanced with brutal precision, determined to crush the human colonies once and for all. Federation forces scrambled to respond, but it was clear that their outdated tactics and traditional fleet formations were no match for the sheer numbers and strategic cunning of the Zorth. Human ships, though brave, were quickly overwhelmed by the enemy's technological superiority. The battle raged for hours, the colonies under siege, and the Federation's defenses crumbling under the weight of the Zorth's onslaught. It was a fight humanity was losing. In the midst of this chaos, Alara Klein was called into action. With Sci-Fi, her newly upgraded fighter, the Human Anomaly, she was to lead a joint human-alien task force. A fleet was assembled, a last-ditch effort to push back the Zorth and defend the Federation's most vital colonies. But Alara knew that the odds were stacked against them. The Federation's fleet, despite their courage, fought as they always had, with brute force and predictable tactics. The Zorth had no such limitations. Their fleets were agile, calculating, and always one step ahead. The Federation's traditional methods were simply no match for them. As the battle unfolded, it became clear that the Federation's forces were being torn apart. One by one, human and alien ships fell to the Zorth's advanced weaponry. Alara's squadron, the last remaining line of defense, was being decimated in the blink of an eye. Only Alara and her fighter remained, alone in the vast expanse of space. But where others saw hopelessness, Alara saw an opportunity. The Zorth had made one critical mistake. They underestimated the unpredictability of human tactics. With no support left and no reinforcements in sight, Alara was forced to fight in ways that would stretch her ship and her abilities to their limits. She darted through the chaos, her fighter a blur of motion, exploiting the gaps in the Zorth's formation. She was everywhere and nowhere, attacking from impossible angles, feinting and then disappearing into the void, only to strike again from a completely different direction. Her tactics were unlike anything the Zorth had encountered. Each move she made was calculated but unpredictable, leaving the Zorth fleet struggling to respond. As she flew through the heart of the enemy lines, her mind worked like a machine, processing threats and opportunities in real time. Rapid acceleration, evasive maneuvers, and sharp turns kept the Zorth fleet off balance, unable to lock onto her with their weapons. Her primary target was clear: the Zorth flagship, the command ship that was directing the entire assault. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by dozens of elite fighters and defensive shields. Conventional wisdom dictated that no single ship could breach its defenses, but Alara had never been one to follow convention. With a daring maneuver, she pushed her fighter to the brink of its capabilities, using a risky, high-speed dash to slip past the Zorth defenses and get into striking range. In a flash, she launched her payload, an experimental weapon designed to disrupt the flagship's advanced shielding systems. The blast hit true, and for a moment, the vast flagship seemed to shudder in space. The shields flickered, then collapsed entirely. With its defenses down, the flagship was vulnerable. Alara moved in like a predator closing in on its prey. Her Next few maneuvers were a blur of controlled chaos. She twisted, looped, and dodged incoming fire, weaving through the remaining Zorth defenders with pinpoint accuracy. Finally, with a precision shot, she crippled the flagship's engines, sending it spiraling into space. The mighty command ship, the center of the Zorth assault, exploded into a massive fireball, its destruction sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The sudden loss of their flagship left the Zorth in disarray. Their fleet, once so confident, now faltered. They had never expected a single human pilot to turn the tide of battle. Alara's victory was more than just a personal triumph. It shattered the Zorth's confidence in their ability to dominate the galaxy. As the remaining Zorth ships retreated, their once unstoppable assault crumbled. The Federation forces, inspired by Alara's courage and brilliance, rallied and began pushing back, securing the colonies that had once seemed doomed. Word of Alara's success spread throughout the galaxy, and soon the human anomaly was a name whispered with awe and fear. The Zorth, now doubting their superiority, began to question their strategies and their very belief in their own dominance. Alara had proven something monumental that day. Not only had she defended the Federation's outer colonies, but she had shown the galaxy that humanity, with its creativity, adaptability, and sheer willpower, was a force to be reckoned with. The tides of war were shifting, and humanity was rising from the shadows of the galaxy. Alara's success marked the beginning of humanity's ascent in galactic warfare, a turning point that would echo across the stars for years to come. Following her monumental victory over the Zorth flagship, Captain Alara Klein became a symbol of hope for humanity. Her name spread like wildfire across the galaxy, carried on the whispers of every Federation soldier, pilot, and civilian who had witnessed her daring triumph. The Federation, once skeptical of humanity's place in the galactic order, began to take notice. The tides of war were shifting, and it was clear that Alara's unconventional tactics, her ability to think on her feet and outsmart opponents, had given humanity an edge the galaxy had underestimated for far too long. The Federation, leadership realizing the necessity of change, began to overhaul their strategies. Alara's methods, which had once seemed too risky and unpredictable, were now seen as the future of warfare. Her focus on agility, misdirection, and exploiting the enemy's weaknesses became the cornerstone of the Federation's new approach. The old tactics, relying on brute force and rigid formations, were abandoned in favor of a more dynamic, flexible style of combat. The galaxy was not prepared for what humanity had to offer, and now the Federation was capitalizing on that. Alara's success didn't go unnoticed by the Federation's military brass. Recognizing her unmatched skills, they placed her in command of a newly formed elite strike team, an assembly of the best pilots, engineers, and tacticians from across the galaxy. The team was tasked with executing high-risk operations deep within enemy territory, striking the Zorth where they least expected it. With Alara at the helm, the new team was unstoppable. Their raids were swift, precise, and devastating. They hit Zorth outposts, supply lines, and key strategic locations, each mission a resounding success. The results were clear. Humanity was no longer the weakling in the galaxy. They were becoming a force to be reckoned with, the underdog species, that had turned the tables in ways no one thought possible. With each victory, humanity's reputation grew stronger. No longer did they cower under the shadow of the Zorth, who had once seemed invincible. The Federation's victories, led by Alara's innovative strategies, began to shake the foundation of the Zorth Empire. What had once been a crushing wave of aggression became a series of staggered, disorganized attacks. The Zorth fleet, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves fighting not just a battle of firepower, but a battle of minds. Alara and her team had turned the very notion of warfare on its head, and the Zorth leadership began to unravel under the relentless pressure of human ingenuity. With each raid, Alara's tactics became more refined, more daring. She pushed her team to the limits, always staying one step ahead of the Zorth. Their ships, once the pinnacle of military might, were now being outsmarted at every turn. Alara's mastery of space combat, her ability to predict the Zorth's movements and exploit their weaknesses, had created a new kind of warfare, one based on speed, surprise, and psychological warfare. As the Zorth suffered more defeats, their leadership began to fracture. Once unified in their desire for domination, the Zorth now found themselves plagued by internal conflicts, as their top commanders blamed each other for the ongoing failures. The once unshakable confidence of the Zorth command began to crack, and cracks in their fleet's morale followed. Alara's reputation as the human anomaly only grew stronger. She was no longer just a symbol of hope. She was the embodiment of humanity's potential. Her strike team became the tip of the spear. In the Federation's campaign, and humanity's involvement in galactic warfare escalated. Each victory, each daring mission, was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and it wasn't going anywhere. The Zorth, once seen as the supreme power in the galaxy, now found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to adjust to a foe they had never anticipated: humanity, with its unpredictable tactics and relentless drive. They no longer had the luxury of dismissing humanity as a primitive species. In the wake of Alara's successes, the Zorth began to realize that their dominance, once unchallenged, was slipping through their fingers. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to believe that the balance of power could truly shift. As the war against the Zorth raged on, the Federation found itself cornered. The once imposing human fleet, now bolstered by countless victories, had been stretched thin across the galaxy, unable to defend all of humanity's borders. Supplies were running low, and morale had plummeted to an all-time low. With the Zorth's superiority in numbers and resources still formidable, the Federation leadership was beginning to lose hope. But in the shadows of this dark time, a new threat emerged, one that would test Alara Klein's resolve and ingenuity like never before. The Zorth, desperate to end the war once and for all, unveiled their ultimate weapon, an enormous battle station capable of destroying entire planets with a single shot. This colossal weapon, nicknamed the Doombringer, was a terrifying testament to the Zorth's technological power. The very idea of facing it sent a chill through the Federation. No ship, no fleet, no defense was capable of stopping it. The Zorth's grip on the galaxy would be unshakable if the Doombringer was allowed to function unhindered. The Federation's commanders convened in a desperate council, but they were all too aware that their options were limited. The odds of taking down such a weapon seemed insurmountable. In the quiet of her command room, Alara sat in front of a holographic map of the galaxy, tracing the path the Doombringer would take. The Federation could not afford a prolonged battle. The mission was clear: eliminate the Doombringer before it could destroy another colony. But the question was how. The Federation was weak, their fleets shattered and scattered. Only a small, specialized strike team could have any hope of infiltrating the Doombringer's defenses. That's when Alara's mind began to work its magic, conjuring a plan that seemed as daring as it was impossible. Alara knew that only one thing could give them a chance, the same thing that had turned the tide of battle before: her unorthodox tactics. The Doombringer, despite its imposing firepower, was still bound by the same rules of warfare. It was large, cumbersome, and predictable. If she could slip through the Zorth's defenses, using the very unpredictability that had baffled them so many times before, then there was a chance, however slim, to destroy it. But the plan was risky, more so than anything she had ever attempted. She would lead a small team of elite pilots, each handpicked for their bravery, skill, and unwavering trust in her judgment. Together, they would infiltrate the heart of the Azai Zorth battle station and plant the explosive charges needed to destroy it. Alara briefed her team, her words carrying the weight of both hope and danger. "We don't have the luxury of a full-on assault. This is a hit-and-run mission. We infiltrate, hit hard, and get out before they can even react. They're expecting us to come at them head-on. We're going to do the exact opposite." The Kree. Pilots, knowing the risks, nodded without hesitation. They trusted Alara's instincts implicitly. The strike force took off, their small fleet of ships darting through the vast expanse of space like shadows. As they neared the Doombringer, Alara's mind raced. The station loomed ahead, a massive structure, glowing ominously in the blackness of space. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by a web of defensive platforms and Zorth fighter patrols. The odds of surviving even a few moments in the vicinity were slim. But Alara's mind had already devised a way through. They would use the Zorth's predictability against them, baiting the enemy into thinking they were attacking in one direction, only to shift their approach at the last second. The mission would test every ounce of their skill. Alara led her team through a series of high-speed evasions, dodging enemy fire with hair-raising precision. She took them through narrow asteroid fields and into blind spots in the station's defenses, each move more daring than the last. The tension was palpable, the weight of each decision heavy in the air. They were close now, too close. The final stretch to the Doombringer's core was littered with obstacles, enemy patrols, automated turrets, and the looming presence of the battle station itself. As they closed in on the target, Alara knew this was the moment of truth. In the face of the Doombringer's massive power, Alara was faced with a gut-wrenching decision. The mission had succeeded. Her team had planted the explosives deep within the station's core. But now, as the countdown to detonation began, they faced a choice. Alara could lead her team to safety, risking the possibility that the station's defenses might spot them and destroy them in their escape. Or she could stay and make sure the mission succeeded, sacrificing herself and her team to guarantee the station's destruction. The seconds ticked by, each one heavier than the last. She looked at her team, their faces set with the same determination she had seen in them all along. There was no turning back now. Alara made her choice. They would take the risk. With a final, daring maneuver, Alara led her team back through the station's defenses, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. As the countdown reached its final seconds, she felt a rush of exhilaration and fear. The station would explode. But would they make it out alive? Only time would tell. The final battle had arrived, and with it, the weight of the galaxy's future rested on the shoulders of Captain Alara Klein and her small strike team. The Doombringer, the Zorth's ultimate weapon, loomed ahead, its power ready to erase everything in its path, including the Federation's last remaining human colony. But Alara's team was not deterred. As they flew toward the heart of the battle station, Alara's mind raced, plotting every move, every potential outcome. The odds of survival were slim, but it had always been her belief that unpredictability was humanity's greatest strength. They had defied expectations before, and now it was time to do it again. Alara's ship, the human anomaly, darted through the blackness of space, followed by her team of elite pilots. The Doombringer's defenses were vast, but Alara had anticipated their moves. She led them through narrow corridors of space, using their small size and agility to outmaneuver the Zorth's massive fleet. They were moving too fast for the enemy to track, too erratic for the Zorth's rigid patterns to counter. With each passing moment, Alara's plan seemed more and more like the only chance they had. As they reached the heart of the battle station, the tension was unbearable. The station's core was heavily guarded, and any slip-up could mean the end. But Alara's instincts were sharp, guiding her every move. She led the team in a series of high-speed dives, each one a gamble, narrowly, avoiding devastating blasts from the station's defensive weapons. There was no room for hesitation, no time for second-guessing. Every decision mattered, and Alara's leadership kept her team moving forward, inching closer to the core. Inside the station, time seemed to slow. Alara's heart raced as she and her team planted the explosive charges deep within the core. The countdown to detonation began, and the team's exit was just as dangerous as their entry. They had done it. The impossible had been achieved. But escape was another challenge entirely. As the seconds ticked away, the Zorth realized what was happening. The station's alarms blared, and enemy fighters swarmed in a desperate attempt to prevent the sabotage. But it was too late. The charges had been set. The race against time became a blur of twists, turns, and near misses. Ilara's unorthodox tactics, once seen as a mere curiosity, had become their greatest weapon. She evaded fire with lightning-fast maneuvers, weaving through the station's defenses, her team following in perfect synchronization. But as they neared the exit, a massive explosion rocked the station, sending shockwaves throughout its corridors. The Doombringer was falling apart. Ilara and her team fought their way through the chaos, their ships barely staying intact as they shot out of the station's docking bay. The station was collapsing behind them, and their escape was nothing short of miraculous. As the team soared into open space, the Zorth fleet, now leaderless and in disarray, had no choice but to retreat. The Doombringer, their weapon of mass destruction, was gone. The human colony was saved. Alara's gamble had paid off. She had defied the odds, rewritten the rules of warfare, and shown the galaxy that humanity was no longer the underdog. Word of Alara's victory spread quickly across the galaxy. The Federation, who had once viewed her as an anomaly, now hailed her as a hero. Her actions had changed the course of the war, and humanity's place in the galaxy had shifted. No longer would they be seen as weak, predictable, or easy to defeat. The Zorth, humbled by their loss and the realization that they could not defeat humanity through sheer power alone, were forced to acknowledge the Federation's newfound strength. They agreed to peace talks, and a treaty was signed, cementing humanity's role as a force to be reckoned with. Ilara Klein's name was etched in history, not only as a brilliant pilot, but as the one who had rewritten the laws of space combat. Her leadership, bravery, and ingenuity had proven that no matter the odds, humanity would always find a way to survive and thrive. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had forever earned its place among the stars.